All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome. Let's see, we've got Shannon, our chamber director from Aurora. We've got Melissa, our chamber director from Herman, and our speaker, Lauren Carter from Jeff City, who are with us for another wonderful third Thursday business speaker event brought to us by the Growth in the Rural Ozarks Grow Program in collaboration with the many amazing chambers that are part of our Grow communities. My name is Rishu Mahalaha. I am one of the architects, designers behind the Growth in the Rural Ozarks program. So glad that you're with us. We have a really, really wonderful full speaker who has joined us today, and I'm so excited to introduce Lauren Carter. Before we get to Lauren, I want to just briefly share with you a little bit about who we are, what we're doing. Today's conversation and previous conversations can be found on this website called business911.org. When you go there, under the educational series listing, you will find recordings to today's event and all of our past events as well. We've got some really, really good catalog of speakers who have shared their insights on how to help grow businesses, expand businesses, sustain businesses, everything from marketing expertise to HR expertise, given COVID. How can businesses be more resilient in the time of COVID? So I have some really great content. So hope you can explore that. The Grow program, we also have a homepage for our program, which is Grow Ozarks, GROWOZARKS.org. This is the portal, the home of all the work that's going on in our various amazing communities in Missouri. So if you want to learn more about what's going on, if you have questions about how your community could also be part of the program, please contact us. We would love to engage with your community further. So without further ado, let's want to introduce our speaker today. Her name is Lauren Carter. Lauren is from the Chicago area and been in Missouri for the last decade or so. And I'm just going to read some of her bio. Just incredible set of experiences. So glad to have her with us, and especially for our small, mid-sized businesses that are looking for that extra help. Lauren and our organization hopefully can be a tremendous asset. So Lauren is the center director of the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, at Lincoln University. She's responsible for overseeing, directing, coordinating, basically the operations of SBDC. Lauren and her team provides one-on-one consulting to entrepreneurs, to startups, to existing businesses. They just have a whole bag of goodies for you. And so what we will also do is, as this conversation is going on, I'm sure Lauren will do that, and we'll also in our various Facebook pages share with you the contact information for Lauren and her team. So if anybody's interested in accessing the support, especially with COVID and the CARES program, the America Rescue Plan, Jobs Plan, there's a SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, will continue to play a huge role in our economy, and certainly, you know, we want our rural businesses to be able to access the support. So, and if you just wanted to know the taking care of small, mid-sized businesses, the easier part of Lauren's day. She's also a mother to 2 teenage daughters, and she was just sharing how when she's not helping small, mid-sized businesses, she's trying to stay sane and manage a rather boisterous home. And the young ladies apparently have just started driving. So our sympathies, Lauren, for the incredible, I guess, jovial home that you have. And we certainly appreciate you joining us today and sharing your insights with us. So welcome. So glad you can join us, Lauren.
Thank you so much. So I am going to share my screen and just let me know when you'll be able to see it. Okay, guys?
Not yet. Yep, there we go.
See it?
Great. Yep.
Give me one moment to get started. Okay. Are you guys able to see it okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So first, I just want to start off by saying good afternoon to everyone. And again, my name is Lauren Carter. I'm the Center Director for the Missouri Small Business Development Center at Lincoln University. And I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. The Missouri Small Business Development Center throughout Missouri offers both no-cost counseling and low to no-cost training to Missouri small business owners. And this month, I am excited to offer you information regarding COVID funding programs. Thanks again for tuning into this webinar, and please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or your local SBDC if you have any questions. I currently cover the areas of Cole, Miller, Montauk, and Osage counties. For today's presentation, I ask that you hold your questions until the end of the webinar. And with that, I say we get started. As you know, there are a lot of different COVID funding programs that have been and are still being established. Today, we're going to discuss the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, otherwise known as EIDL, the Targeted EIDL Advance and Supplemental Target Advance, the Shutter Venues Operator Grant, and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund Grant. First, let's summarize the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, also known as EIDL. It is administered by the SBA. Small business owners, including agricultural businesses and nonprofit organizations in all US states, Washington, DC, and territories can apply. It can be used with PPP, RRF, and SVOG funds, but it cannot be used for the same expenses. For loans approved starting the week of April the 6th of 2021, it provides a 24-month of economic injury with a maximum loan amount of $500,000. For loans approved prior to April 7, 2021 for less than $500,000, they may be eligible for an increase based on new loan maximum amounts that were announced March the 24th of 2021. Businesses that received a loan subject to the previous loan limit can submit a request for an increase at this time. This is a loan and it is not forgivable. The deadline to apply is December 31st of 2021. The purpose of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is to help small business owners meet financial obligations and operating expenses that could have been met if a disaster had not occurred. It is a long-term direct loan from SBA, and these funds can be used to cover a wide array of working capital needs and normal operating expenses. So things like continuation of healthcare benefits, rent, utilities, and other fixed debt payments. The EIDL program offers long terms and low rates. It is a great option to consider as a source of funding during a disaster. For businesses, it has a fixed 3.75% APR. For nonprofits, it has a fixed 2.75% APR. It has a 30-year maturity, and collateral is only required for loans of $25,000 or more. Personal guarantees are only required for loans exceeding $200,000. And again, this is a loan, it's not forgivable. This loan can be paid anytime with no prepayment penalties. The first payment is deferred 18 or 24 months, and interest accrues during that deferral period, so keep that in mind. These funds can be used on working capital and normal operating expenses. So I just want to point out for anyone who received a disaster loan that all SBA disaster loans made in the calendar year 2020, including the COVID EIDL disaster loan, the first payment due date was extended from 12 months to 24 months from the date of the note, And all SBA disaster loans that were made in this year, 2021, they will have their first payment due date extended from 12 months to 18 months from the date of the note. So who's eligible for the COVID EIDL loan program? Applicants must be physically located in the US or a designated territory and suffered working capital losses due to the coronavirus pandemic. Eligible applicants include businesses with 500 or fewer employees, cooperatives with 500 or fewer employees, agricultural enterprises with 500 or fewer employees, most private nonprofits, faith-based organizations, sole proprietorships, and independent contractors. And just a side note, all owners who own 20% or more of the business are required to be included on the application, and at least 81% of that ownership needs to be accounted for on the application in order for the application to be eligible. Ineligible businesses include businesses that are engaged in illegal activities like loan packaging, speculation, multi-level sales distribution, gambling, investing, or lending, among other things. There's a full list of ineligible businesses on the SBA website. So here's how to apply for the COVID EIDL loan program. There are 4 basic steps in the COVID EIDL application process. First, you're going to apply at disasterloanassistance.sba.gov. Once the application is completed, you will then receive a loan quote. This will be an estimate of your qualified loan amount. It does not mean that your application was approved.
Hey, Lauren.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Would you mind turning your camera on?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that'd be great for people to see you while you're speaking.
Sure,
Thank you.
give me 1 second. Can you guys see me okay?
Yes, we can see you. Great, thank you.
The third step would be the application review. So a loan officer will review the application for completeness, and they may contact you if more information is required. Then the last step will be the decision step. So basically, this is where the SBA will decide whether or not the application is approved or if it will be declined. So you will receive an email with the decision and the next steps directly from the SBA. So here are some common denial reasons. Keep in mind that this is just a generic list of reasons, and denials are usually unique to each applicant. But we see a lot of the first one. So unsatisfactory credit history. So because the EIDL, basically EIDL is a government loan. So that means federal regulations require applicants to meet a minimum credit standard in order to qualify. The next reason is unverifiable information. If an applicant does not respond within 7 days to a request for additional information from a loan officer, they have the option to decline that application. Ineligible non-US citizen status. Applicants must be US citizens, non-citizen nationals, or qualified aliens. The business activity may not be eligible. Another reason that we've seen quite often was economic injury that is not substantiated. So there are 2 possible reasons for this decline. The first is that the economic injury is less than the amount received for the EIDL advance. So that means when you prove that you had an economic injury, the total amount of that was equal to or less than what you received in the EIDL advance. The next reason was the information submitted does not indicate that there was economic injury. So remember that this loan is to help small business owners meet financial obligations and operating expenses that it could have met if the disaster had not occurred. The next denial reason is based on character. So applicants may be declined if they have been convicted of a felony within the past 5 years. If they have ever been engaged in the production or distribution of any product or service that has been determined to be obscene by a court of competent jurisdiction. those who are currently suspended or debarred from contracting with the federal government or receiving federal government grants or loans, and those who are presently subject to indictment, criminal information, arraignment, or other means by which formal criminal charges have been brought in any jurisdiction. And last is failure to respond. If applicants do not respond to emails asking for additional information to sign loan closing documents, the application will typically expire within 60 days. So let's talk about declined EIDL applications. Applicants have up to 6 months to request reconsideration, even after the application deadline of December 31st, 2021. You can email your reconsideration request to pdcrecons@sba.gov. Make sure you include your application number, any information required to overcome the reason for decline, and any additional information that may help in processing this request. Remember, if the decline letter requested specific information or documentation for reconsideration, make sure you include that. Make sure you have the business name, the borrower's name, your tax ID, EIN, or SSN number, your application number, your loan number, and the IRS Form 4506T, which is the request for transcript. If you have already applied for the COVID EIDL loan, you should definitely take some notes here. So if you've already applied, but you did not accept the full amount, you have up to 2 years after the date of the loan note to request an increase to get that additional fund amount. So that's even after the deadline of December 31st of 2021. If you decline the entire original loan amount, technically the loan is considered to be withdrawn, but you can request a reacceptance within 6 months of the original loan offer. And if you need more money than what was approved, this can be modified by increasing the amount of up to 24 months of economic injury or a maximum amount of $500,000, whichever is less. An increase can be requested either before or after accepting the loan. If you were approved for a loan and would like to request additional funds, all you have to do is log into your SBA loan portal account. Once you're logged in, click on the button that reads Request More Funds, and then follow the instructions. Next, let's talk about the targeted EIDL advance. So to summarize, it is an invitation-only emergency grant for working capital administered by the SBA. It is not a loan and it does not have to be repaid. It provides advance funds of up to $10,000 to applicants that are in low-income communities who previously received EIDL advance for less than the $10,000, or to those who applied but didn't get a chance to receive any funds because the funding for that program was out. The original EIDL advance provided $1,000 per employee up to a maximum of $10,000. So the targeted EIDL advance provides the full $10,000 to certain small businesses that meet this eligibility criteria. Applicants cannot receive more than $10,000 for the original EIDL advance plus the targeted EIDL advance combined. So who's eligible for the targeted EIDL advance? Applicants may qualify if they meet 3 things. First, you must be in a low-income community. So to help applicants determine if they are in a low-income community has to be defined by the Internal Revenue Code. But there is a mapping tool available on the SBA's website, and I do have the link here, which I can send out if anyone needs after the presentation. This business has to have an address that is in a low-income community to qualify. So SBA is encouraging anyone who thinks that they might be or has received an invitation from SBA to apply for this to make sure you click on that map to verify that your business address is located in that low-income community. Second, you must be able to demonstrate more than 30% reduction in revenue during an 8-week period beginning on March the 2nd of 2020 or later. If an applicant meets the low-income community criteria, they will be asked to provide gross monthly revenue statements to confirm the 30% reduction. And finally, you must have 300 or fewer employees to be eligible for this invitation. Just as a reminder, applicants cannot apply. SBA is reaching out to those who qualify via email based on their original EIDL advance or EIDL loan application. Next, let's discuss the supplemental targeted advance. So to summarize, the supplemental targeted advance provides $5,000 for working capital needs. Eligibility is the same as eligibility for the targeted EIDL advance. It can be combined with the original EIDL advance or the targeted EIDL advance for a total of $15,000. Again, this is not a loan and it does not have to be repaid. Applicants cannot apply. SBA is reaching out to those who qualify via email. So please make sure that you're checking your emails, spam folders, and everything else. Do not ignore any emails that you see ending in that sba.gov. The targeted EIDL advance and supplemental targeted advance can be used on working capital needs and normal operating expenses. So rent, utilities, fixed debt, etc. There's no impact on other SBA funding. It will not be subtracted from PPP, SVOG, or RRF amounts. And as a reminder, the Economic Aid Act that was enacted December of 2020 repealed the requirement for the advance to be subtracted from the PPP loan forgiveness amount. So if you have been contacted by the SBA to apply for either the targeted EIDL advance or the supplemental targeted advance, you can check the status of it by either calling SBA's Customer Service Center at 800-659-2955 or by sending an email to targetedadvance@sba.gov. So next, let's discuss the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, or SVOG. The Shutter Venue Operators Grant program was established by the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits, and Venues Act, and it was amended by the American Rescue Plan Act. It is administered by the SBA. The program includes $16 billion in grants to shuttered venues. Eligible applicants may qualify for grants equal to 45% of their gross earned revenue, with the maximum amount available for a single award grant of $10 million. $2 billion is reserved for eligible applications with up to 50 full-time employees. This is not a loan. It does not need to be paid back. A very important note to consider is that the SVOG funds are affected by having other SBA funding, which we'll talk about later. So who can apply? Eligible entities include live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts organization operators, museum operators, motion picture theater operators, and talent representatives. You must have been in operation as of February 29, 2020 in order to be eligible. So we'll talk about some things that might disqualify an entity from SVOG. Give me 1 second. So circumstances that would preclude an otherwise eligible entity from SVOG includes things like not having a place of business located in the US. If it was not in operation of February 29th, 2020, if it does not have a defined performance and audience space, if it is a publicly traded company or majority owned or controlled by a publicly traded corporation, If it presents live performances of sexual nature or has gross revenue, either directly or indirectly, from the sale or products or services or presentation of any depictions or displays of sexual nature. If more than 10% of its 2019 gross revenues came from the federal government, but this does not include disaster funding. If it owns or operates venues, theaters, museums, or talent agencies in more than one country, owns or operates venues, theaters, museums, or talent agencies in more than 10 states, and it had more than 500 employees as of February 29th of 2020. If a museum or other museums with which it is affiliated have already received $10 million in SVOG funding, it would not qualify. And last, if it has 5 other firms with which it is affiliated that have already received SVOG awards, it will not be eligible. SVOG grant amounts will be calculated in one or two ways. So for eligible entities in operation on January the 1st, 2019, grants will be for an amount equal to 45% of their 2019 gross earned revenue, or $10 million, whichever is less. For eligible entities that began on operation after January 1st, 2019, grants will be for the average monthly gross earned revenue for each full month you were in operation during 2019, multiplied by 6, or $10 million, whichever is less. So let's discuss what you can use these funds for. They can be used for specific expenses, which include things like payroll costs, rent payments, utility payments, scheduled mortgage payments, worker protection expenditures, payments to independent contractors, ordinary and necessary business expenses, including maintenance costs, administrative costs, including fees and licensing, state and local taxes and fees, operating leases in effect as of February 15th, 2020, insurance payments, and advertising, production, transportation, and capital expenditures related to producing a theatrical or live performing arts production. Now, some of these do have some stipulations. So for example, scheduled mortgage payments. This does not include any prepayment of the principal. Same thing with the scheduled debt payments. When it comes to paying independent contractors, it cannot exceed $100,000 in annual compensation for an individual employee of any independent contractor. So some of the important things to point out: you cannot use SVOG funds to buy real estate. You cannot make payments on loans that originated after February 15th of 2020. You cannot make any investments or loans. You cannot make any contributions or other payments on behalf of or to political parties, political committees, or candidates for election. And then you cannot pay for any other uses prohibited by the SBA. When considering funding options like the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, keep in mind that receiving some of these funds may affect the eligibility of receiving other SBA funds. So entities that receive SVOG funds are ineligible for Paycheck Protection Program funds, and they are ineligible for the Restaurant Revitalization Program funds. Entities that receive PPP loans on or after December 27th of 2020, it doesn't matter if it's first or second draw, they will have to have these PPP loan amounts deducted from their SVOG calculated award amount. So entities that receive PPP loans before that date, so before December 27th of 2020, you will not have the PPP loan amount deducted from your calculated SVOG amount. So if it was after December 27th, 2020, those will be deducted. But if you got PPP before December 27th of 2020, it will not have to be deducted. So there are several items in documentation that you need in order to apply for the Shutter Venue Operators Grant. So I have a list here. This is not the full list, but these are just like the primary items you may need. So first is going to be your DUNS registration. You're also going to need to be registered at sam.gov. You're going to need your TIN or EIN number, your NAICS code. You must have internet access and a compatible web browser. This application does not work well with Internet Explorer. You will also need a smartphone with an authenticator app installed. You need a valid email address, a written certification of need, a government issued photo ID of the business owner, or an authorized representative of that entity. You must need your business license if this is applicable within your city or county. You need your 2019 and 2020 tax returns. You need your 2019 and 2020 financial documents for your supporting documentation. You will need your 2018 tax return if you are a nonprofit that has not ended your FY20, your fiscal year 2020 yet. If you are in bankruptcy in Chapter 11 or Chapter 13, you need those bankruptcy documents. If you are exempt from filing 2019 or 2020 federal taxes, you need a tax exempt status letter or some type of documentation to show that. You will also need to do the assurances for non-construction programs form, the certification of a drug-free workplace. You will need SBA Form 1623, which is a certification regarding debarment, suspension, and other responsibility matters. You will need SBA Form 1711, which is a certification regarding lobbying and disclosure of lobbying activities for organizations that do not engage in lobbying. You will need a disclosure of lobbying activities, which is required for those organizations that are engaged in this type of activity. And then you would also need another transcript. So this is going to be a SVOG specific 45 OCT request from transcript. If you filed any tax forms that are a 1040, 1065, 1120, 1120S, 990, or 990EZ. Including the items that I just mentioned, there are certain applicant-specific documents that are required. So if you are a live venue operator or promoter, theatrical producer, or live performing arts organization operator, you need to provide a floor plan or some type of comparable document that shows a defined performance space in the audience areas. And if you use any type of outside space for one of these, you must have a plan of that as well. If you are a motion picture theater operator, you must provide a floor plan of the facility, and it must identify the projection booth or space containing that motion picture projector. If you are a museum operator, you must provide a floor plan or some type of comparable documentation demonstrating indoor exhibit space and at least one auditorium, theater, or performance or lecture hall with fixed seating. You must include plan of grounds if outdoor space is used for that auditorium, theater, or performance or lecture hall. You must provide a document with links to state or local ordinances documenting pandemic-related occupancy restrictions. It must show state or local orders that demonstrate the limitation on occupancy that affected the museum. If you are a nonprofit, you must provide documentation of your nonprofit or your not-for-profit status through an exemption status letter. If you're interested in applying for the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, I recommend that you complete a few tasks before applying. So first, register and have your DUNS number. Register in sam.gov. Download that authenticator app that we talked about. Review the Shutter Venue Operators Grant checklist. Guys, this is so important. Again, I have the link here. It's on the SBA website. And make sure you also have your 2019 and 2020 tax returns completed. So once you're ready to apply, review and have within reach your Shutter Venue Operators Grant applicant user guide. This will walk you through the application process almost step by step. Then once you have that, All you have to do is go to the Shutter Venue Operators Grant Application portal and register. If you need any help applying for this application, you can reach out to myself, any of your local SBDCs, or you can call the SBA call center. I have the number listed here at 800-659-2955. So the SBA has priority periods for this grant. The SBA is processing applications by the priority periods established by the Economic Aid Act. During the first 14 days, SBA will only award grants to applicants who suffered 90% or greater revenue loss from 2019 to 2020. After that, the next 14 days, the SBA will only award grants to applicants who suffered 70% or greater revenue loss from 2019 to 2020. After that initial or combined 28-day period, the SBA will award grants to all eligible applicants. So some things to keep in mind about this. The SBA is accepting application on a first in, first out basis with each respective priority period. If funds remain available, recipients of that first, second, or third round award that suffered a 70% or greater revenue loss for the most recent calendar quarter may apply for a supplemental grant. If funds become unavailable, then the SBA plans to distribute $0 placeholder supplemental awards that could be redeemed within 6 months if Congress appropriates additional funds. And last, but certainly not least, I will discuss the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, or better known as RRF. So to summarize this grant, it's administered by the SBA. There is $28.6 billion in funding that will be awarded as grants to eligible entities. It can be used with 2 rounds of PPP, EIDL, and the Employee Retention Tax Credit. Grants are up to $5 million per restaurant or $10 million per restaurant group. Minimum award amounts is $1,000. Applicants must verify that current economic uncertainty makes this funding request necessary to support ongoing or anticipated operations. Grant funds must be used for eligible expenses that were or are incurred between February 15th of 2020 and March 11th, 2023. Next, we'll look at what businesses are eligible for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund grant. Eligible entities are businesses that are not permanently closed and include businesses where the public or patrons assemble for the primary purpose of being served food or drinks. So this will be caterers, restaurants, snack and non-alcoholic beverage bars. So that's like a coffee shop or ice cream shop, bakeries, food stands, food trucks, and food carts, bars, saloons, lounges, and taverns, breweries, brew pubs, tasting rooms and tap rooms, wineries and distilleries and inns. Now, some of these do have to meet a certain condition. So I have them marked. Some of them, like bakeries, require that on-site sales to the public that comprise at least 30% of their gross receipts. An entity is not eligible if it is a state or local government operated business, or as of March 13th of 2020, owns or operates together with any affiliated business more than 20 locations. So regardless of whether these locations do business under the same or different name or are in different industries. If it has a pending application for or has received a Shutter Venue Operators Grant, if it is a publicly traded company, if it is permanently closed, if it has filed a Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy, or filed either Chapter 7, Chapter 11, 12, and 13 bankruptcy, and it is not under an approved plan or reorganization. If it is not eligible if it is a nonprofit organization, and it is not eligible for funding of at least $1,000. So if you don't qualify for at least $1,000 of this grant, you're not eligible. Eligible applicants must be one of the following. They can be a C Corp, S Corp, partnership, limited liability company, sole proprietor. You can be self-employed, independent contractor, tribal business, an LLC taxed as an S Corp or a sole proprietor. B corporations are also eligible, but when they fill out the application, they will need to either select a C Corp or an S Corp on that application, just depending on how they're taxed. When considering funding options like the RRF grant, keep in mind that receiving these funds may affect the eligibility of receiving other SBA funds. Specifically for this funding, any funds already received through the Paycheck Protection Program will be subtracted from the applicant's final funding amount. And if the applicant received a PPP loan, the applicant must use the same EIN number for its RRF application. So there has been some cases where an applicant applied for the first draw PPP for multiple locations under one EIN, and then subsequently applied for second draw PPP loans under different EINs. In that case, the applicant must provide all EINs for each entity that received that PPP funding. Upon applying for RRF, applicants must withdraw any outstanding PPP applications. Also, the applicant must not have a pending application for or have received a shutter venue operators grant from SBA. There are 4 ways the RRF grant is calculated. So the first way it's calculated is applicants that have been in operation prior to or on January 1st, 2019 will use calculation 1, which is 2019 gross receipts minus the 2020 gross receipts minus the PPP loan. So it's pretty straightforward. 2019 gross receipts minus 2020 gross receipts minus any PPP funds that were received. So applicants that began operation partially through 2019 can use calculation number 2. Calculation 2 is the average 2019 monthly gross receipts multiplied by 12 minus the 2020 gross receipts minus the PPP loan amounts to equal the RRF grant amount. Now, applicants that began operation partially in 2019 can choose to either use method number 2 or they can use calculation number 3. I'm about to discuss calculation number 3, but just an FYI, if you use calculation number 3, it could cause a longer processing time for your application. All right, so applicants that began operations on or between January 1st, 2020 and March 10th of 2021, and applicants that have not yet opened but have incurred eligible expenses as of March 11th of 2021 can use calculation number 3. So calculation 3 is the total amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15, 2020 and March 11th of 2021, minus the 2020 and 2021 gross receipts through March 11th, 2021, minus PPP loan amounts. I know that was a lot to say, so I put an example on the presentation just to kind of break it down. So total spent on eligible expenses from February 15th of 20 through March 11th of 2021, minus 2020 and 2021 gross receipts through March 11, 2021, minus your PPP loan amounts will give you your RRF grant amount. And just as a reminder, calculation number 3 may cause a little bit longer in processing your application if you decide to choose this method. So applicants that operate multiple locations using different calculations can use calculation number 4. So any applicant that operates multiple locations may calculate funding amounts for those locations using separate calculation methods. And then they will aggregate the amounts together. The aggregated funding amount is limited to $5 million per location and $10 million for the applicant and its affiliates. So let's just talk about gross receipts really quickly. Not going to harp on this, but just remember, when you're calculating your RRF amount, do not include the following in your gross receipts. PPP loans, so first or second draw that were received 2020, 2021, any SBA Section 1112 payments, any economic injury disaster loans, any EIDL advance, any target EIDL advance, or any other grant funds that were received because of the CARES Act. Don't include any state or local business grants or any FRRP appropriations. So let's get to the good stuff. Eligible expenses. So what can you spend these funds on? So we have them broken down here. Business expenses. So business payroll costs, which includes sick leave, business utility payments, business maintenance expense, business supplies, including PPE and cleaning materials, business food and beverage expenses, including raw materials, covered supplier costs, business operating expenses, so insurance, marketing, fees, legal, POS equipment. You can also use it on construction of outdoor seating, but expansion costs are not included. So you can't just expand and then use the SVOG funds for that project. For business debt, payments on any business mortgage obligation, business debt services. Again, they don't allow any prepayments, just like we talked about with the SVOG funding. So just to talk about how you can apply for this. If you decide to apply, you can apply online through the SBA platform, which is restaurants.sba.gov. You can apply through your point of sale vendor. I know a lot of people that actually use Toast for it. They said it was really easy and simple. You can also apply by telephone. You can do that at phone number 844-279-8898. But just remember, if you apply by phone, this has a much longer processing time. The SBA has recently announced that if you plan on applying for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, you must apply no later than May the 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I just want to reiterate that if you plan on applying for this, you have to do it quickly. You cannot apply after May the 24th after 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you need help applying, just reach out to your local SBDC. You can call the SBA call center at 844-279-8898. And then I even listed the SBA district offices where you can find local assistance through SCORE, Women's Business Center, etc. Now, the SBA has a priority period for this grant also. So the first period was a pilot period. The pilot period participants were randomly selected from existing PPP recipients who self-identified as members of the RRF priority groups. Pilot participants did not receive funds until RRF was open to the public at application launch. So during the initial 21-day priority period, SBA accepted applications from all eligible applicants. Only applicants from small businesses owned by women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged applicants will be funded during this timeframe. Just for clarification, this applies to entities that are at least 51% owned and the management and daily business operation of the applicant are controlled by one or more individuals who are women, veterans, or socially and economically disadvantaged. Applicants must self-certify on the application that they meet this eligibility requirement. On the 22nd day, all eligible applications will be processed and funded until the program funds are exhausted. So I would like to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. I provided a lot of information about several funding sources that I hope you found helpful. Please keep in mind that due to time restraints, I was not able to discuss all the programs in their entirety, but please feel free to reach out to myself if you have any questions, or again, your local SBDC, SCORE, Women's Business Center. And at this time, I am open to questions.
Lauren, thank you so much. Wow, that was that's a lot. That's a lot of content, and I'm guessing it's the type of content that we probably won't get a lot of questions because there was so much. As people are digesting the information, whether it's today or a later time, what we'll do is post your contact information in the Facebook chat area. So if anyone wants to connect with you at a later time, they can certainly do that. But I don't know, Melissa and Shannon, any reactions, thoughts from you guys?
Well, first, I want to say thank you very much for the information. Yes, it was a lot, but it's nice to know that there is assistance out there for our businesses. So I just personally encourage a business who has struggled. If you're not sure, you don't know where to start, you know, give the contact, make contact one way or the other. Is this something that they could also utilize their local financial institution for help if they need it?
Yeah, some financial institutions will help. I know I get a lot of referrals from clients that come from those financial institutions because they know that we have a direct line to SBA. So I've actually had quite a few individuals who received like the targeted advance invitation emails. And for some reason they were declined. They didn't understand why. And it was really just mistakes that they filled out. They're sent a list of questions that they have to answer, and they answered some of the questions incorrectly. So they really shouldn't have been disqualified, but they didn't understand the questions that were asked. So I share this story just to say, if you are one of those individuals who received an email and it has that SBA.gov at the end, and you're not sure if it's a scam, you're not sure if you should fill it out or even how to fill it out, just reach out, just reach out. I get so many phone calls about, I know I didn't talk about PPP, but I get phone calls about PPP, the EIDL program, the advance, the shutter venue operators grant. We are here to just assist any small business or entrepreneur. So don't feel like if you are just unsure, if you qualify, you kind of read some things, but you're just not sure, just call me, just email me, we'll work it out. We make things so simple. Well, I make things very simple. I like
that's wonderful.
Right. So I tried to include on the presentation a lot of the questions that either I have seen by clients or that clients have brought to me. So hopefully I was able to explain a lot of things. But again, if not, just reach out. I'm more than happy to explain or help in any way that I can.
Melissa, any questions?
Lauren, I would just like to say that this is going to be a great video to have in our toolbox, you know, so when we do get those questions in the coming days or whenever, we can just refer them to this. So I appreciate, yes, a lot of information, but such good details on the steps. I think it'll be really easy for somebody to just follow through with that. And appreciate you being available for any future questions.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you.
Wonderful, Lauren. Well, thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind, if you could share the presentation with us as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, we can share that with the audience as well. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to make everyone aware. Next month we're trying something interesting. We're going to try a virtual business networking event, and the link is there. This is the first one for us, and I want to give Shannon lots of credit for bringing this kind of a program to our attention. This is a virtual small mid-sized business networking event. So please join us. This will be a great opportunity for the different communities, the business leaders to connect, to engage, to learn from each other. So we'll see how the conversations go. For those of you who are interested in providing us some feedback, we always welcome your feedback. Just helps us improve the quality of the program. How's today's program? How have the past programs been? Any feedback you have on additional content that you would like us to bring to you, we welcome your guidance. Anyways, so with that, we will wrap up. Lauren, once again, thank you. Hope today is a calm evening for you and your household. And the chamber leaders, thank you, Melissa, thank you, Shannon, and our other chamber leaders for your time, for your leadership. We appreciate everything you do. You guys take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.